Hello everyone, Chad Frantzen here, and welcome to the Kingdom Finance Show. Today we are going to reveal what you really need to know about the economy, the stock market, and real estate. And we're going to give you action steps to take right now to become a Kingdom Impact investor. It's time to bring clarity out of chaos. Let's get started. Hello everyone, Chad Frantzen. Welcome to the Kingdom Finance Show. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, thanks for following us. I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to the show through whatever medium you partake of the Kingdom Finance Show podcast. We really appreciate you being a part of the community of kingdom-minded investors who want to change the world. So thanks for being here. Hey, today's show, I'm going to talk about a new topic, something we've been working on internally at the Kingdom Finance Show and with our wealth management company, Wealth Builders Investments. So I'm going to talk today about what I'm calling the Kingdom Model. The Kingdom Model for investing. So before I dive in, again, please like the show, subscribe. If you have friends and family, coworkers who really want to apply Christian principles, biblical worldview to how they manage their finances, whether it's for their church or their ministry or their business, and even most importantly, at a personal level with your family and educating the next generation, children and grandchildren, on being good stewards and how to expand the kingdom, you're in the right place. So please spread the word. It really helps out to get our influence out and educate people. So the goal here at the Kingdom Finance Show is really to educate and empower you as Christians, as people who love Jesus, to influence the world with the resources God has given you, whether that's through personal investing or through business, through enterprise that you're involved in. So really glad you're here. Let's jump in to the content for today. Again, I'm introducing this concept of the kingdom model for investing. And I'll probably come back and do a couple more shows on this, but at a high level, I want to introduce it today here on the show. All right, well, let's get started. All right, so let's jump in. The kingdom model for investing. Again, I want to introduce this topic on today's show. Our vision at Wealth Builders Investments is to make a global difference by stewarding wealth that maximizes its impact and its influence for the kingdom. In effect, we want to be outward expressions of the Great Commission in Matthew 28:18 of going into the world, going into culture, going into the marketplace, and making disciples of Jesus. And one of the things we talk about internally at our wealth management company is we want to excel at this, procuring and managing bespoke investments that change the world. Now, that sounds great as part of your mission statement and your vision, but how do we do that? So one of the questions that I get when we start working with families in a consulting, coaching, investment management environment is, okay, Chad, team, tell me more practically, how do you do this? And, sometimes it's kind of like, I know it in my head what I'm going to do, but articulating it out to where you can go do it yourself or you understand more fully if we're serving you on the investment management side of how we're doing it. So that's really the kingdom model and investment strategy. That's really what I'm going to talk about is how do we procure and manage unique investments that not only do they not violate our biblical worldview, but they accentuate our biblical worldview. They add to the impact we're having through our giving and through discipleship and through our role in the local church and in missions, that it's actually added to, just like seasoning on a great meal, that we want to add something to what we're doing that will be a pleasing aroma to Jesus. I've shared this statistic on other shows before, but one of the things that really drives us in creating the kingdom model is a study done by Christianity Today in 2022 that found that of the $30 trillion managed or controlled by Christians individually or at an organization level, and again, that's 30 trillion, not 30 billion. Either way, it's a big number. However, trillion is big. This was money that was in the stock and bond market. It was not money in real estate. But just looking at the broad capital markets, stock and bond markets, there was only about 8% of that money. Again, it's being stewarded or controlled by Christian individuals or entities. Only 8% of it was in any way invested using a faith-based screen, or I'm going to call it a framework, a faith-based framework. And that's just not acceptable. I mean, we look at, we obviously want to have people who are defenders of the Christian faith and pro-life and pro-First Amendment in political office, both at the municipal and state and certainly at the national level. And as Christians, we have to vote. And so there's a lot of great organizations and speakers on this. Lance Wallnau certainly be one of the preeminent ones, Charlie Kirk, and others who are really advocating, hey, we've got to get out. This is a war that we're in, and we have to vote our values and our beliefs, and we also have to invest them. We have to invest and vote and spend with a mindset that we are stewards of what God has given us, and only 8% of us doing that in this investment study. That's certainly we see that a lot. There's a lot of evangelical Christians, Catholics that aren't voting, right? I mean, across the board, and that needs to change in order to turn things around in the U.S. So again, not to get off point here on today's show, I'm talking about the kingdom model for investing. Now, further, there's been some internal studies in the financial services industry, and I've shared this stat before, but I bring it up to give context for what I'm going to share about the kingdom model as an investment strategy. And somewhere between 20 and 25% of Christian professionals, so financial services professionals that do this for a living, for a career, whether that's a stockbroker, financial planner, financial advisor, insurance agent, CPA, asset manager, only 1 in 4 are actively utilizing a faith-based framework for recommending and procuring investments. And so although that's higher than the 8%, we just have to do better, right? I mean, we have to recognize that we can invest without violating the teachings of Jesus and the precepts in the Bible and still have a good financial return, still grow our assets to put our kids through college, but also thinking further than just our immediate family, grow wealth so that it can impact our community and the world around us in a way that's glorifying to God. We talk a lot about King Solomon from the Bible, the wealthiest man of all time. Ecclesiastes 11:2, he says, invest in 7 or 8 ventures, for you know not what disaster may come upon the land. And certainly that is true then, and it's true today in 2023, where there is so much economic and geopolitical unrest that we have to be mindful of how we are protecting our assets and growing them at the same time. So with that as a framework, again, investing in 7 or 8, for you know not what will come upon the land, that's statistically been proven in academia and in the financial industry. They've done all sorts of studies, and there's been Nobel Peace Prizes on the study of efficient markets and modern portfolio theory, and I'm not going to teach on that today, but what it finds is that what Solomon said was actually true. Go figure. We know that, but when academia and the Wall Street minds do their own scientific research on it and they come to the same conclusion, then we can prove our point. And that's where you hear the concept of asset allocation and diversification and dollar cost averaging and all these different topics that Wall Street teaches its advisors and its customers. So with that in mind, I want to introduce the kingdom model for investing. Now, from a framework standpoint, there's really three lenses or tiers for investing framework. Again, I want to cover these briefly here, and then I'm going to jump into the model itself. The first one is biblically responsible. You'll often hear this called BRI, biblically responsible investing. And really, this is just that old adage in the legal profession of do no harm. And so this is a negative screen. So what we're saying no to things that are clear violators of First and Second Amendment rights, that are clearly anti-Christian in nature and in their stance. And we're just choosing not to participate. So common example would be choosing not to participate in spending or investing with companies like Target or Disney, or JP Morgan, or Google, Facebook, right? Quite a few that are clear violators of the biblically responsible screen. The second lens of the framework is pro values. So whereas the first is what you're saying no to, pro values is what you're saying yes to, right? So you want to engage in companies that are promoting biblical values, that are reinvesting in their community, that are supportive of Christian views and First Amendment, Second Amendment rights, and pro-life. And so that's the idea of pro-values. You want to invest or endorse spending and investing in those types of companies. And the third level of the framework is social impact. Now, in the secular liberal world, they call this ESG. In the Christian world, we're calling this kingdom. So kingdom impact. That's our version of ESG. And if you are, a follower of Christ and you have a 401k or an IRA, in my opinion, if you see ESG attached to any of the investments you're in, I'm going to encourage you to really reevaluate if that's suitable or a good fit for you, because most likely it's tied very closely to the liberal agenda of the Soros and BlackRocks of the world. But again, the third leg of this is social impact, and for us, we know that means kingdom impact. Now, one of the questions I get is, well, okay, Chad, you've got the three tiers. We have biblically responsible, pro-values, and then this social or kingdom impact. How do we take that, shape it together, and create an investment strategy? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's exactly what we do at Wealth Builders Investments. And our team, we do lots of different investment research into this, creating model portfolio strategies. Again, everything has to be customized to where you are as an investor. Again, I'm not giving specific advice here, but you have to sit down with a financial advisor, planner, and really think through your own personal situation, your history of investing, your age, your suitability, your liquidity, your goals. And so we call that creating a financial plan. Right? And so I encourage you to sit down with an advisor, a planner, and actually think through, pray through creating a plan. Now, it's not the most exciting thing in the world to do. However, the exciting thing is to talk about, hey, we've got this great investment opportunity and has all this potential, and my friends are doing it, and we saw it on Fox News, or we saw it on YouTube somewhere. That's all great, but we need to be informed about what our personal strategy is before we start saying, hey, I'm going to allocate or invest some dollars personally or through the ministry or through the company in that. So I really want to encourage you. That is something we do at Wealth Builders Investments. If you want to find out more about creating your own financial plan using kingdom values, please reach out to us. You can actually connect with us online, wealthbuilders.net. And we do have a free download, free financial survival guide, wealthbuilders.net/invest. That's /invest. So I do want to make a shameless plug there, just because it is the type of work that our team does day in and day out on that. So want to give you some practical applications for that. All right, so when we think about taking the 3-tiered framework, the biblically responsible, pro-values, and social impact, now I want to connect this concept of what many of you have heard as the 7 mountains or the 7 spheres of culture. Lance Wallnow, good friend, has popularized this, and thankfully it's on a lot of people's radars, entrepreneurs and churches, to know that we don't just stay in the quote-unquote church mountain. We really have to go to all spheres of culture for impact and influence. And so when we think about the kingdom model, what we're doing is we're taking that 3-tiered approach that I just explained, and we're going to lay it on top of the 7 mountains. So visually, if I were drawing this, we have the 7 mountains, right? And, just to remind everyone on that, we're looking at, everything from media and entertainment to education, family, government, right? We're looking across all spheres of culture. I mean, and this is important to know. We want to look at each particular one, right? So whether that's the education mountain or business or arts and entertainment, media, right? And we want to look for investment opportunities. Now catch this, investment opportunities in each of the 7 mountains of culture that check the boxes for all 3 of the filters, right? Biblically responsible, pro-values, and thirdly, the social or kingdom impact. So again, this is the screen. I'm telling you how we do it right here. Now, some of you may say, "Hey, that's I get it. I don't get it." That's okay. I just want to educate you to say, "Hey, how do we create our kingdom model for investing with what we do on that?" So we're going to look at each individual sphere or mountain of culture. And we're looking for companies. We're looking for organizations. We're looking for kingdom leaders in each of the mountains: arts and entertainment, business, education, government, family, medical field. We're looking for leaders, kingdom leaders of either public companies or private companies, or perhaps entrepreneurs that have an idea centered around innovation and reformation. And we're looking for those leaders in each of the 7 spheres that are at the top third of the mountain. Okay? So I know that's a lot, but when you think about it, the higher up the mountain you are, let's say in education or government or business, the higher up the mountain you are as a person, as an organization, as a ministry, as an advocacy group, the higher up the mountain you are, your position gives you more impact, it gives you more influence, and it gives you more favor, right? So many of you have heard, as I have, of people who have gained great favor with world leaders, government officials, Fortune 500 CEOs, all sorts of things, because it's a door of favor that opens. So you may say, well, Chad, why do you take that approach? Because the times we're living in require it. And so we must decide that our capital, if we're shooting a bow and arrow, and our arrow that we're pulling back is the capital, whether it's $1,000 or $1 million or $10 million, that capital symbolized by this arrow is going to have the most impact. Whether it's a financial return or a non-financial return, there's both, right? Because as a kingdom investor, I'm looking for all 3. This is not doing it purely for philanthropy. I'm not doing it purely as a venture capitalist either. It's a combination of those. The higher up the mountain that the capital is placed, the more impact, influence, and favor will rest on it. And that is the heart behind what I'm going to call the kingdom model. Now, do you have to be in all 7 spheres of culture? No. Some of you are uniquely positioned in particular parts of business or the church mountain or education, and that's where your resources need to be focused. But I would still contend that if you looked at it, most people I have met, although they may have one primary sphere, they do tend to bleed over into others. And so oftentimes people, when they really start looking at the impact they have and where God's positioned them, they may have 2 to 3 mountains that they have access to, that they have influence. So think of that as if you were in my shoes and you were tasked with the job of placing money into investment strategies that were suitable, that meet all of your criteria. How would you go about doing that? What would you look for? That's really the idea behind the kingdom model. But before I get into some of the asset classes, I wanted to explain what I've done here for several minutes of, well, positionally, how are we doing it? We have some filters kind of top down to get us where we want to go. And then we're looking across all the spheres to see, okay, we want to be in the top third of that mountain. What companies are uniquely positioned there? Maybe they have proof of concept. Maybe they have some patents they're working on. Maybe they have some access. Maybe they are heads of Fortune 500 companies, and they're Christian leaders, but you're not going to hear about it, but they're doing things inside the walls of Babylon that are kingdom. And I can tell you from personal experience, I am meeting more and more leaders like this. And it's super encouraging to me personally, because on the surface, a public company may look extremely woke, and rightfully so. It may be very woke. But when you think about Daniel in Babylon, you think about Joseph in Egypt, God's ways are not always our ways, and his ways are higher, and we have to almost have a healthy fear of the Lord that he's got this. And I am starting to hear stories of people who are working at companies or are being approached by companies that I would have otherwise written off as completely woke and from the devil. However, just like Daniel and just like Joseph, God is using them, right? Romans 8:28, God works for the good in all things. And so his ways are higher than our ways. And so I'm getting on a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but when we think about how we invest the money, it's not always what you think, right? It's not always a clear slam dunk of, well, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. Sometimes that's the case. But that's where due diligence is a term we use in our industry. So I'm talking about creating the kingdom model. I'm really introducing it on today's show. I am going to come back in future episodes and unpack it at a deeper level as far as what specifically we do in the kingdom model. But conceptually, I hope this is helpful as we think through, hey, what do we need to be doing right now with the economy where it is, with interest rates where they are, with a lot of unrest in places like Russia and uncertainty in China and, the government debt at $33 trillion, homes quite unaffordable at certain levels for first-time home buyers. What's the kingdom investor to do? So I want you to come away encouraged by this, not overwhelmed with, wow, this is not something that I can implement. So again, we're looking at that top third of the mountain, and we're looking to invest alongside private companies and public companies that have kingdom leadership, and they have high measures of impact, influence, and are in alignment with our values. And as an investment, as a standalone investment, it makes financial sense. We don't just invest alongside a kingdom leader because we like them or we believe in them. They really have to have, all their ducks in a row, if you will, as far as their business model and what they're doing, their marketing plan, business plan. And so that goes without saying, but I want to mention that because it's not just a feel good, hey, we're not a nonprofit that's just giving grants to people, although that's all well and good. That's just not where we operate on that. Okay, so I'm talking about the kingdom model. We've talked a little bit about the screens, the boycott of your companies, the BlackRocks and JP Morgans of the world. And then there's obviously a lot of good companies that are public. The private market, just as a reminder, the private market for investing in the 7 spheres of culture is significantly larger than the public marketplace. And so most folks go to work for a church or an employer or start their own company, and they set up an IRA or a 401k plan, and they just do what everyone else has always done and told them. That they just put it into some type of stock market index fund that's run by Vanguard or Fidelity, and that's all well and good, but we're taking a different approach here on the Kingdom Finance Show to say we need to do this differently, right? Because we need to be a part of affecting change in culture, right? Now, I want to share one study that I've shared in some previous presentations, but I have a friend who's a research analyst. He runs Portfolio. I've become friends with him just in the last year and a half, and I really appreciate the work he's doing. And he did a study on the Russell 3000, and the Russell 3000, for those of you who do not know, is just the largest 3,000 U.S. companies. Right, it's kind of the market, if you will. It's bigger than the S&P 500, and it represents 96, 97% of the whole U.S. stock market. And so you take this index, and he did a lot of research screening of that, and he found that there was about 4 to 5% of those 3,000 public companies that adhered to biblical values, or we'll call it kingdom integration, kingdom values on that. The CEOs were faith-driven, from a Christian faith-driven on that. So not a huge amount, certainly a remnant, right? 4 to 5% is not a huge number. But where it gets even more interesting is that he back-tested total shareholder returns over a 10-year period, looking backwards. This is how a lot of research analysts do their work, right? And what he found was that the Russell 3000 had, let's say, a 13% annualized total shareholder return over that previous 10 years. And then he took this remnant group, that top 5%, that were they were faith-driven, Christian worldview, and their total shareholder return was not 13%. It was actually closer to 20%. And what it proved was the concept that, or this investing thesis, that faith-driven Christian CEOs that build transformative culture, that attract and retain talented employees, are expected to deliver stronger financial results than their peers, right? Jesus teaches a lot on leadership and money. And so when you start applying that to business, again, we're talking about all 7 spheres of culture, depending on where they are, it stands to reason that Jesus knew what he was talking about. And this is one of many studies that I've cited in some of my talks, that it works. It actually works in a Babylonian world. You can invest this way, promoting companies that are kingdom, avoiding those that are not, and actually have a great opportunity to have meaningful financial returns. Now, again, past performance, not indicative of future results. I'm not giving advice here on the show. I'm merely stating my opinion, sharing with you some studies that I've read. Now, one final thing on this study that my friend did was if you even drill down within that top 5% to maybe the top 2% of that group, they had even better performance. They had even higher retention, higher earnings growth. So again, that's what we're talking about when we say we want to go to the top of culture in each of these. And we don't want to leave our money to the BlackRocks or the JP Morgans of the world to choose how to invest it and how to vote proxies, right? Or how to engage a board of directors. So one of the things, just as I wrap up kind of introducing the kingdom model, is it's one thing to invest in these public and private companies, but it's the second step is to be involved after you invest. And you're like, Chad, what do you mean? Well, the kingdom model wants to invest in public and private companies in the top third of each sphere of culture. But just investing doesn't mean you stop. It's not like you vote and then you're done. You invest, and now you are a equity owner, even if it's a very, very small percentage in those public or private companies, those public or private enterprises. So step 2 of that in the kingdom model is we want to be involved in shareholder advocacy. And so what I mean by that is, and the liberal left does this. They mobilize and they have advocacy groups that are contacting the board of directors for public companies and private companies to further their agenda. So whatever that agenda is, if it's abortion rights, if it's views on political candidates, whatever it is, if it's gambling, if it's marijuana, if it's gender identity rules, if it's open concepts of marriage and gender, that's what those advocacy groups are doing. Well, from a Christian perspective, if we have kingdom advocacy groups that are contacting those same companies and saying, hey, we represent, maybe we are a small number, but we're not as small as you think. And we have an interest in our values to be represented on that. So that's important. And contacting the boards of directors for these companies, the more we as Christian investors and people in my industry do that, we start to create a sound, and there starts to be a voice that the boards of directors for these companies will hear. And it's our belief that although they may not come out and specifically support Christian worldview, that they will at least be neutral or at least be complementary to both camps that are voicing their views and desires. So the third step on that in the kingdom model is not only are you investing the way I've explained, you're moving to shareholder advocacy, which means you're contacting these companies, right? You are contacting them to let them know what you believe in, what you support, don't support, so that they know, and that you're a shareholder. And so as we can mobilize this, now if you own 100 shares of a company and I own 100 shares of a company, that's not that much. But if collectively our group owns tens of thousands of shares, 100,000 shares of a company, public or private now, then you start to get noticed a little more, right? And they start to recognize, it's not just this screaming liberal minority telling us what to do and what to vote. There's actually other shareholders who are passionate as well, who are willing to speak up. That's step 2, advocacy. Step 3 is going to be what we call proxy voting. So when you own shares in a public or private company, you are given a proxy, a legal document, to vote on certain things that come before the board of directors and the CEO for the company. Some of them may be very minor. Some of them may be quite major. And when you invest in an IRA or 401k and you just go put it in Vanguard or BlackRock or JP Morgan, what you're doing, not only are they picking the companies that you're investing in, they're engaging in shareholder advocacy, and they're also engaging in the voting of the proxies, right? So all three things are happening. So that's why I encourage folks to really pay attention. If you're invested in mutual funds and ETFs and 401ks, look at who the underlying manager are, because most likely all three of these that I've laid out in the Kingdom model, they are going to be doing the antithesis of it. So that's why the Kingdom model is saying, hey, our top-down approach is where I started the show, but now once we select investments, now we have a voice. Now we mobilize the voice, and we're involved in conversations with what the company is doing with decisions, and we're able to vote as well. And for those companies that are positive, right, that are companies we support, we can encourage them. Right? We can encourage them for the stance they're taking on having chaplains in their corporate offices, in their policies for what they do with their charitable giving in a way that is not anti-Christian. And we can champion those companies and let them know, right? So it works both ways. So again, the Kingdom model, once we work our way through the top third of each sphere of culture, through that framework that I explained, then we're going to get engaged with investing alongside the companies, communicating with them, our voice, and thirdly, advocating for ourselves through the voting, what's called the proxy voting process. So you'd be amazed. I mean, there's definitely a movement, and there's a handful of groups that are doing this really well. And one of the things our goal is at Wealth Builders Investments, because a lot of our clients and we internally desire this, is we're mobilizing this. And so we're working with some third-party companies that share our Kingdom worldview to really hire them in a consultative role to go out and do the advocacy, do the proxy voting, and provide really that second and third level of engagement besides just, well, I'm going to go invest on that. So that is, in summary, that's the Kingdom model, right? I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm going to end the show here, but next episode, I'll probably do a couple more episodes where I will dig deep in. You know, I started with Solomon, invest in 7 or 8. So what I'll do on the next episode is I'll actually break down, in my opinion, what are some of the 7 or 8 asset categories that we invest in. Again, I'm not going to give you specific advice. You really need to sit down and talk with a financial planner, advisor. We're happy to do that, or work with yours there locally where you are. And we'll go through some specific iterations of how we would implement the Kingdom model. Hey, this has been fun. I really appreciate you being with me on today's show. Again, we're introducing the Kingdom model, and it's really an investment strategy for how do we engage culture in all spheres to make an impact, right? The higher up the mountain we're engaging, the more impact and more favor we are going to have. Hey, if you are interested in getting a complimentary consultation and you want to learn more about the work Wealth Builders Investments does, we'd love to engage with you. We certainly want to give you resources and empower you where you are. And I hope that wherever you're listening this from, that you can engage with a Christian financial professional in your market and share this information with them. And we really want to empower other financial professionals, whether they're brokers, planners, CPAs, to implement a lot of these concepts in their own practice. Because what we want to do is we want to find out what can we do together that it's impossible for us to do alone on that. So again, if you do want a personalized consultation, if you're not working with a Christian advisor, reach out to us, wealthbuilders.net/invest. We'll send you an email. Happy to do a consult with you. Our team will. And again, most importantly, we want to be a resource for you to start implementing kingdom principles to your businesses, your ministries, your family's finances, your business's finances. A lot of fun today. Again, I hope you appreciate. You might want to listen through this a second time. I know I covered it a bit quick. It felt there was a lot there to lay out the kingdom model. On the next show, we'll talk about specific strategies within those 7 or 8 asset classes, just to give you examples, just to educate you on that. All right, friends. Well, thanks for being here. Please like and follow the show, whatever platform you're watching this on, whether it's YouTube, Podcast World, Apple, Spotify, you name it. And please pass this along. We really want to get the word out on Kingdom Impact Investing. And I thank you on behalf of Billy Epperhart, our entire team at Wealth Builders Investments. I just want to thank you for your commitment, just your obedience to the Lord to get educated on making what Billy says, making sense of making money for making a difference. So I'm Chad Frantzen, and we'll see you next time on the Kingdom Finance Show. Take care. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Kingdom Finance Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps to get the word out. For more resources on becoming a Kingdom investor and to connect with us directly, visit our website at wealthbuilders.net. That's wealthbuilders.net. We'll see you next time on the Kingdom Finance Show. The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Authentic Counsel, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.